Okay, this is the skull. The skull is made of two different groups of bones. The cranial, which start here and extend backwards, are all considered flat. The front of the skull, these are considered facial bones, which are all irregular. Starting with the facial bones, the names. This is the mandible, makes up the lower jaw. Then you have the upper jaw. You have two. You have a left and right maxilla, which you can also see from this inferior view. This would be your left maxilla. This would be the right maxilla that make up the hard palate. You have the palatine bone, which is just inferior to the maxilla. It's only one bone. Okay, you then have your left and right nasal bones. The lacrimal, which you cannot see on the skull. The zygomatic, which make up the cheekbones. The other bones can be seen on a plastic skull. This is the vomer, which makes the inferior portion of the nasal cavity. Lateral to that, inside the nasal cavity, that is your inferior nasal concha. You have a right and left. The vomer can also be seen on this inferior view of the skull here. You can also see the lacrimal bone. You can see the hole in that little divot, just that one small area would be considered lacrimal bone. And that completes the facial bones. Cranial bones, you have the frontal, which extends all the way up here. On the upper sides, you have the parietal bone. This would be the right parietal. You have the temporal bone, which starts from here, covers all of that portion. That's all temporal. And then the back of the skull, between my fingers, that is all occipital. As far as the ethmoid and sphenoid bones go, typically I ask that either from this view. These portions are considered sphenoid, where my fingers are. And this, of course, is just the inferior portion of the occipital. From an inside view of the skull, with the skull cap taken off, this portion, as well as this portion, is all part of the sphenoid bone. The ethmoid can be seen between my fingers here. It's both the ridge and the holes on the side of the ridge. You can also see the ethmoid bone from my frontal view. Everything above my finger, including the middle portion of the nasal septum and the small parts on the side, which are called the middle nasal concha. It's all considered ethmoid.